Join me as I dive into some of the deadliest horror stories out there. Can I make it through without getting totally freaked out? There's something irresistible about a good horror story, don't you think? They let us peek into the abyss of our worst fears while we're wrapped in the safety of our own space. But the best ones don't just scare us, they linger, haunting our thoughts long after the lights go out. Why is that? Maybe it's because they tap into universal fears, or maybe it's the thrill of feeling scared while knowing we're safe. Either way, horror stories have a way of pulling us in, and I, for one, can't get enough of them. Today, we're exploring tales that go beyond simple ghost stories. These are the ones that chill your blood and creep into your dreams. From cursed objects to vengeful spirits, malevolent creatures to eerie urban legends, I've picked out some of the deadliest and most unsettling stories for us to dive into. So, grab your blanket, turn off the lights, and let's descend into the darkness together. But fair warning, these stories aren't for the faint of heart. They're gruesome, unsettling, and unnervingly realistic. If you're easily spooked or planning to sleep soundly tonight, you might want to watch something a little more cheerful. But if you're like me and thrive on that rush of adrenaline only fear can bring, then buckle up. We're diving straight into the heart of terror. The haunting of Blackstone Asylum. Let's start with a place steeped in history and horror, Blackstone Asylum. Once a beacon of hope for the mentally ill, it devolved into a nightmare over the decades. Accounts of inhumane treatments, experimental surgeries, and mysterious disappearances cast a long shadow over its walls. But that's not even the worst part. Rumor has it, the asylum's halls are haunted by the spirits of those who suffered within them. Picture this. You're wandering through its decaying corridors, the air thick with mildew and the scent of despair. Faint screams echo in the distance. Shadows dart across your peripheral vision, but when you turn, there's nothing there. The terror here isn't just in the physical space, it's in the way the asylum messes with your mind. One survivor claimed they encountered a spectral nurse roaming the halls, her face twisted in a ghastly smile, offering help that no sane person would dare accept. Another reported seeing faces in the peeling paint of the walls, their silent screams etched into the very structure of the building. Blackstone Asylum isn't just a building, it's a trap, a living entity that feeds on fear and despair. The Curse of the Silent Tape. Now let's talk about a story that feels disturbingly modern, the cursed videotape. The tale goes that anyone who watches this unassuming tape receives a phone call immediately after, with one simple message: you have 7 days. Skeptics laugh it off as a prank until the countdown begins. The protagonist of this story, a young journalist named Mika, thought she was above superstition. But the moment she played the tape, strange things began to happen. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. Mirrors reflected things that weren't there. And every night she heard faint whispers that grew louder with each passing day. Desperate to break the curse, Mika delved into the tape's origins, uncovering the tragic story of a girl who was betrayed, murdered, and tossed into a well. Her spirit now seeks vengeance, claiming anyone foolish enough to watch her tape. As Mika's time runs out, the line between reality and nightmare begins to blur. Imagine being trapped in that cycle of terror, knowing your end is near but powerless to stop it. The Phantom Highway. Next, we venture onto a road less traveled, the infamous Phantom Highway. It's said to be cursed, and travelers who dare drive it at night often vanish without a trace. The highway's reputation began with a series of gruesome accidents, but over time the stories became more sinister. Ghostly hitchhikers, phantom cars, and a shadowy figure known only as the Keeper are said to haunt its length. A group of friends decided to debunk the legend by driving the highway at midnight. Their journey started innocently enough, but soon their car radio picked up faint whispers. Fog rolled in unnaturally thick, and the road seemed to stretch endlessly, looping them back to the same spot over and over. The group's fear escalated when they saw a figure in the distance, a tall, cloaked shadow with glowing eyes. As they tried to escape, the road seemed to fight them, pulling them back toward the figure. Only one of the friends managed to stumble out of the woods hours later, rambling incoherently about the Keeper and how they had to pay the toll. To this day, the others remain missing. The Dark Secrets of Willowmere Plantation. In the heart of the South lies Willowmere Plantation, a sprawling estate with a dark and bloody history. The plantation was the site of countless atrocities during the era of slavery, and it's said that the spirits of the wronged still wander its grounds, seeking justice or vengeance. Visitors report seeing spectral figures toiling in the fields or hearing the faint sound of chains dragging across the floor. But the real terror lies in the main house, where a malevolent entity is said to reside. Many who've dared to stay overnight recount feeling an oppressive presence, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. One paranormal investigator claimed to see a figure in a tattered dress standing at the top of the grand staircase. When they tried to approach, the figure dissolved into shadow, leaving behind the overwhelming stench of decay. Willowmere isn't just haunted, it's alive, pulsing with the energy of its violent past. Why we're drawn to the darkness. So why do these stories hold such power over us? Maybe it's because they make us feel vulnerable, reminding us that not everything can be explained. Or maybe it's the thrill of survival, of imagining how we'd react in these horrifying scenarios. Either way, horror taps into something primal, something universal. And yet within these tales of terror, there's a strange kind of comfort. They remind us of the strength of the human spirit, of our ability to face unimaginable fear and emerge on the other side, scarred perhaps, but alive. The House That Devours. Let's start with a story about a house that isn't just haunted, it's alive. On the outskirts of a sleepy town stands Grimhaven Manor, a decrepit mansion that no one dares approach. Over the years, there have been whispers of people going inside and never coming out. The locals say the house has a hunger, a need to consume anyone foolish enough to cross its threshold. The most chilling part? Those who have escaped describe the house as constantly shifting. Hallways stretch endlessly, doors lead to nowhere, and rooms change their layout as if the house itself is toying with its victims. One survivor, a delivery driver who wandered in during a storm, claimed that the walls seemed to breathe and that he heard his name whispered from the shadows. But the scariest detail came at the end of his story. He said he could still feel the house calling him, even from miles away, as if it hadn't finished with him yet. The Demon in the Mirror. We've all heard the urban legends about mirrors being gateways to other dimensions, but this story takes that concept to a terrifying new level. A college student named Elena found an antique mirror at a flea market, charmed by its intricate design. But soon after bringing it home, strange things began to happen. At first it was subtle. She'd catch glimpses of movement in the reflection, but when she turned, no one was there. Then, things escalated. Her reflection began moving independently, smiling when she wasn't, or staring at her with cold, empty eyes. Desperate for answers, Elena consulted a paranormal expert who warned her that the mirror was a prison for something ancient and malevolent. But it was too late. One night, Elena vanished, and the mirror was found shattered on the floor. To this day, no one knows what happened to her or if her reflection took her place. The Call from the Dead. In this next story, a late-night phone call becomes a portal to the afterlife. A man named David received a call from his sister, who had passed away in a car accident 6 months earlier. At first, he thought it was a cruel prank, but then she said something only she could have known, a secret they shared as children. The call was filled with static and distorted voices, but her message was clear: don't trust the shadows. Over the next few days, David noticed strange occurrences. His phone would ring at odd hours, and when he picked it up, all he heard was breathing. His shadow began moving on its own, flickering unnaturally against the walls. Terrified, David reached out to a spiritual medium who told him that his sister's message was a warning. Something had followed her from the other side, and now it was coming for him. The Forest of Whispers. Deep in the heart of an uncharted forest lies a place the locals call the Whispering Woods. Anyone who enters hears voices, soft, seductive, and impossible to ignore. The voices lure people deeper into the forest until they're hopelessly lost. A group of hikers decided to investigate, thinking it was all just a myth. As they ventured deeper, they heard whispers calling their names, promising secrets and salvation. One by one, the hikers split off from the group, following the voices into the darkness. Only one hiker returned, babbling incoherently about the eyes in the trees and the mouths in the ground. The others were never found, and to this day the locals say the voices are getting louder, as if the forest is hungry for more. The haunted doll that watches. Our final story revolves around a seemingly innocent doll that turned a family's life into a nightmare. When a young girl named Sophie found an antique doll at a yard sale, she immediately fell in love with it. But the doll was far from ordinary. At first it was little things. The doll would appear in different rooms, or its eyes seemed to follow you wherever you went. Then Sophie's parents started hearing faint giggles at night and the sound of tiny footsteps. The family tried to get rid of the doll, but no matter how far they threw it away, it always found its way back. One night, Sophie's mother woke up to find the doll sitting on her chest, its porcelain hand wrapped around her throat. They finally called in a priest to bless the house, but even after the ritual, they could still hear faint whispers coming from Sophie's room. Play with me. Forever. The lure of horror. These stories tap into primal fears, the loss of control, the unknown, and the things we can't escape. But they also remind us of the thin line between the ordinary and the supernatural. Could these tales just be wild imaginations, or are they warnings of something darker? What do you think? Do you have a story that sends shivers down your spine? Share it in the comments, and let's keep the conversation and the chills going. And remember, sometimes the scariest things aren't the ones we can see, but the ones we can't.